Morocco retaliates after a Spanish hospital treats a wanted Polisario Front leader for COVID-19, but is allowing thousands of migrants to illegally cross into a Spanish enclave, a violation of human rights or a justified diplomatic response. I'm Andrea Sankey, and today's newsmaker is the diplomatic row over Moroccan migrants and the Western Sahara. Well, they swam through treacherous waters and scaled barbed wire fences just for the chance at a new life in Spain. Thousands of migrants made it to the North African Spanish enclave of CEUTA. And while the journey had been tried before, never has there been such a dramatic influx. Morocco's border police had been notoriously tough, but this time they looked the other way. Rabat stands accused of using migrants to send a message to Madrid after Spain's decision to host Polisario Front leader Brahim Ghali. Now, the Algerian-backed movement has been fighting to create an independent state in the Western Sahara. Rabat calls Ghali a terrorist who wants to undermine Morocco's territorial integrity. But are migrants unfairly being used to punish Madrid over this diplomatic spat? We'll have that debate in a moment, but first, here's Natalie Pohonen.
People have made this journey from Morocco to Spanish territory before, but never in numbers like this. It's estimated that over a 48-hour period earlier in May, at least 8,000 people crossed over to Ceuta. 2 of them died in their attempt to reach these shores, including a 17-year-old boy. The enclave is a little-known pocket of Spain in North Africa that's surrounded by a 6-metre fence. The vast majority of those who made the crossing were Moroccans, many of them young, unemployed men. And just as quickly as they came, most of them have now been returned. Except for hundreds of unaccompanied minors. Spanish authorities say they want to reunite them with relatives as soon as they can, but they were not prepared to take care of so many children all at once. This 14-year-old says he swam over when the Moroccan authorities loosened their border patrols. He was hoping that this journey could lead to a better life. He says, "My parents see that if I come here, I can have a future. Over there, even with a diploma, it's like you didn't have one. It's a dream that's turned bitter." Morocco is a prison and Spain is now a prison, this 15-year-old says. The Moroccans told us, go, go, pass, pass. They let us cross. I was just swimming and I saw people crossing, so I went too. So what led to thousands of people attempting to reach the peninsula all at the same time? Authorities in Ceuta say that those who made the crossing were tricked into it.
Cuentan desde que venían a Ceuta de excursión, a la famosa anécdota de que venían a ver un partido de fútbol con Ronaldo, a que iban a dar una vuelta y que luego se venían. En fin, yo creo que ha sido una manipulación agresiva contra la voluntad de las personas, engañando a las personas.
This migration crisis is happening at the same time as a diplomatic one between Morocco and Spain. At the heart of it is Western Sahara, a former Spanish colony that was annexed by Morocco in 1975. Morocco claims sovereignty over the region. A sand wall called the Berm, shown here in red, divides the Moroccan-controlled territory in the west from the eastern part controlled by pro-independence rebel group, the Polisario Front. Last year, a decades-long ceasefire between the government in Rabat and the Polisario Front was broken. Then, in mid-April, Madrid allowed the group's leader, Brahim Ghali, to come to Spain to get treatment for COVID-19. They say it was for strictly humanitarian reasons. But that move angered Rabat, and the decision by authorities to allow thousands of people to cross to Ceuta was seen by some analysts as a form of diplomatic retaliation. Morocco's foreign minister told local news agency MAP that the true source of the crisis is the welcome Madrid gave to the Polisario separatist militia leader. Amnesty International says that the asylum seekers and migrants were being used as pawns in a political game between Morocco and Spain. For now, this round of the diplomatic tussle appears to be over. Moroccan authorities are back patrolling the border, but the question remains, will vulnerable people be used again to apply political pressure between these neighbours? Natalie Perhonen, The Newsmakers.
Well, to talk further about what's really at play between Morocco and Spain, let's welcome our panel. And joining me from the Moroccan capital, Rabat, is Yasmin Hasnaoui. She's a board member of the Institute of Saharan Studies, Al-Andalus. Luis Arroyo is in Madrid. He was the political advisor to Spain's former socialist prime minister, José Luis Zapatero, and he is now the president of the consultancy Advisors of Public Communication. Also in Madrid is the head of internal policy and a researcher at Amnesty International Spain, Virginia Alvarez. Thanks all so much for being with us. Greatly appreciated. Luis, I want to start by letting you explain why Spain thought it worthy to allow Brahim Ghali into the country for treatment. He's not just wanted by Moroccan authorities, he's also got serious charges of war crimes pending against him by Spanish-based human rights groups.
Well, first, the Minister of Foreign Affairs explained that it was just for humanitarian reasons, and I believe that is probably true. Let's remember that Mr. Ghali was, first he was born in the Western Sahara when the Western Sahara was a colony, a Spanish colony. Second, that he was the delegate of the Polisario Front here in Madrid, where he established very good relations with the successive governments of Spain. Third, that he worked very closely with the United Nations in the defense of the West Sahara cause. So he was not someone unknown by the Spanish government. Brahim Ghali was is not only a leader of the Western Sahara independence movement, but also a close friend of the authorities in Spain. So I really believe the words of our foreign affairs minister when she said that it was only for humanitarian reasons that he was in Spain.
Then quickly, why did he have to come in under a false ID and a false name?
Well, that's probably for safety reasons, I don't know, or for diplomatic reasons. But at the same time, I believe that someone that has been here working in politics in Spain, that it was somehow born in Spain when the Western Sahara was a colony, that knew very well the authorities of Spain could not be abandoned in his sickness, I understand.
Okay, just for clarification, I have to mention that he did enter Spain on an Algerian diplomatic passport. But Yasmin, I want to turn to you and ask you if you're satisfied with what you heard. Is saying that Brahim Ghali was accepted under humanitarian conditions only, is that good enough?
Well, actually, if he was, I know that Brahim Ghali, the Polisario separatist leader, went to Spain for medical treatment, but we're not talking about the humanitarian problem or this humanitarian situation that led Spain have Ghali treated there. But we are talking about this trust that was built between Spain and Morocco for so many years, and this trust just was let down because of that Spanish Polisario Madrid Polisario Algiers toxic triangle. And I think also the fact that the Spanish government did not inform Morocco, and we know that there are strategic collaboration between Morocco and Spain on different levels. So the fact that the government of Pedro Sanchez secretly engaged in deals with the enemies of Morocco's territorial integrity by hosting the Polisario leader under a false identity, with the name of Mohammed bin Battoush, under a false Algerian passport. I mean, and who is wanted for criminal crimes since 2016. And I think that it's all about that collaboration. Why Spain was not clear about that? Because I think that Spain sacrificed these strategic relations with Morocco in favor of a gain. I don't know whether it's an energy again, or and also I recall that Rabat has always been crystal clear in its stand and refused to support the Catalonian separatists who sought to, in 2016 they sought to set up an independent region state in northeastern regions of Catalonia. So when Spain faced separatism, Rabat was clear, but Spain did the contrary by not respecting Morocco's territorial integrity. So here we're not talking about a humanitarian situation. We're talking about that strategic collaboration that has existed with Spain on different levels, on important levels, and until now, the government of Pedro Sanchez has not been very clear why it did not, speak with Morocco, inform Morocco, and why it accepted a war criminal. And I think it's not you in your report. You said that Rabat claimed that he is a criminal. Yes, he is criminal. It's not Rabat that claimed that. But also, Spanish Sahrawis that are suing now Brahim Ghali.
Yeah, Luisa, I want you to respond to that. I mean, if you can speak to why, as Yasmin is saying, the Spanish government would sacrifice the trust in a very important relationship with the government of Morocco for the well-being of one man that is actually accused of being a war criminal, also by a number of Spaniards.
Well, remember that Spain. Well, I mean, you don't have to remember it because probably you don't even know, but Spain is receiving hundreds of kids coming from the Western Sahara for humanitarian reasons every summer in Spain, since as Mrs. Hasnaoui knows, and I'm sure that she knows very well. Spain has been supporting, through NGOs and through many organizations, has been supporting the people that is right now in the Western Sahara territories in Algeria. Spain has been protecting many of the humanitarian causes of the Western Sahara people, as Mrs. Hasnaoui knows. Again, Mr. Brahim Ghali was the delegate of the Polisario Front here in Spain. I don't think that there's any comparison possible between the movement in Catalonia and the movement of the Western Sahara people. I don't think that there's any historical, not even moral, or even legal comparison between the two. But that's the reason, because I guess that's the reason, and I believe my government in this specific point.
Okay, but very quickly, I mean, obviously you state there's a historical legacy with Western Sahara, but do you, as a political advisor, think it's worth it for the price that Spain may have to pay in its strategic relationship with Rabat now?
I don't think that the Spanish government did a right measure of the impact that was going to have. And the Spanish government probably didn't think that the government of Morocco was able to send so many people to jump into the ocean and to try to approach Spain. I think at the same time that the government of Morocco probably was wrong in thinking that the enemy was Spain here, because the enemy, in fact, is not only Spain. I mean, the enemy, I wouldn't talk about enemies, but here the objective wasn't only Spain, it was the whole European Union that reacted immediately, calling the Morocco government, explaining that this is not the way things are.
Okay.
And in fact, the government resumed his attitude, and right now the borders are closed, and most of the people it's again in Morocco, except for the kids, for the minors that have a specific status.
Okay. Interesting, though, that you feel the government probably underestimated the impact.
Yeah, I think it did.
Okay, Virginia, I want to bring you into this discussion. Apologies for the time taken here, but you're very concerned with the price that migrants have paid because of this diplomatic spat. Tell us where you believe their rights have been violated and who's really responsible for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's not the first time that migrants and asylum seekers are in the middle of the political problems between Spain and Morocco. And Amnesty International has been reported for many, many years human rights violations in both sides. And I think one of the problems is when not only the Spanish authorities, but also the European Union is trusting in third countries to manage their migration flows, no matter at what price. And this is a game, unfortunately or sadly, it's a game that some countries, like in this case, are playing. And it's not the first time. We've been reporting human rights abuses in Morocco, dealing with migrants. And in this case, it is very serious as well, because on one side, you have the Moroccan authorities sending their own people to Spain, and Spain immediately expelling them without any procedure at all. And Morocco accepting them. So they have been playing with the hopes of these people, and also it's very concerning that minors have been expelled without enough safeguards, and also asylum seekers.
Right.
Spain has their duties. Spain has to protect those that are fleeing from human rights violations, and this has not been the case.
Right. That is an EU-wide problem when it comes to migrants and refugees, especially of the last 6 years
sadly,
or so. But Virginia, tell us what is happening and what will happen to the hundreds now of unaccompanied minors who did make it to CEUTA. We've seen some very disturbing pictures of them, of course, in detention right now. What is supposed to happen? What mechanisms are in place?
Yeah, this is the first time also we saw children very, very young, only 6, 7 years old. Many of them has been claiming for their families. Others are have a migration project. So now it is for the Spanish authorities to do things right. We've been reporting expulsions of minors without safeguards, and that needs to be investigated. But also Spain has, on one hand, to return in safety way to those who wants to be again with their families, and on the other hand has to protect those that don't want to return, or it's not safe for them to return.
Right.
As you say, right now there are many in a warehouse, and this is not a place for children to stay. So also we are claiming to the authorities solidarity among the autonomous communities, among other cities in Spain, just to aid also CEUTA to deal with this problem.
Okay. Luis, if I can go back to you and readdress the geopolitical issues that are at stake in all of this. And if you can tell me what you think is in the best interest of Spain and how the government can actually balance its crucial relationships with both Morocco and Algeria over this issue now.
Spain has to maintain a very close and good relationship with Morocco. I have no doubt about that. And it has to measure well and to estimate in the right way the importance of each humanitarian activity, the Western Sahara and the relationships with Algeria, etc., together with the need of a close vicinity relationship with Morocco. That means helping Morocco to contain the migration. Remember that the migration is not only from Morocco. It's basically from sub-Saharan countries. I mean, Morocco is doing an exceptional effort to control migration to Europe. And we in Europe and we in Spain have to recognize that effort and have to pay, so to speak, to pay the price of having Morocco dealing with thousands of people crossing the Sahara, crossing to Morocco to try to enter Europe. And we have to be very generous with Morocco. We have to understand their problem and to work with them, as I think that most of the governments try to do. So there's no way that we have a bad relationship with Morocco.
Okay.
There's no way that we can afford that.
Yasmin, I mean, having heard that, can this relationship quickly be repaired then, and how?
Well, I'm sure it's. Of course, I agree with Mr. Luis on what he said. I think that it's high time that I think Spain needed to review, and also Morocco. They need to sit down on the table and try to solve that problem, because it's all based on trust. And I think that we're not talking. It's not only one collaboration. It's important collaboration, as the guest speaker said, a collaboration based on economy, collaboration based on containing irregular immigration, collaboration based on security, etc. So I think that the two governments need to sit down and try to, solve that problem. And also, I would say, I will convey a message through, TRT, that I think that Spain needs to review its strategy when it comes to its way of seeing the Western Sahara conflicts. I think it is high time that it needs to lift up this ambiguous stand on this issue. But again, when it comes to that problem, I think that Spain always expects Morocco to be silent. But on the other side, Spain is expecting Morocco to be the guard and the gendarme to Europe. When it comes to terrorism, it wants to maintain or contain terrorism, and also it wants Morocco. It also wants Morocco to I would say turn its eye and on that issue of Ceuta and Melilla, and it wants Morocco to put Spain as its top economic partner. So I think there is a lot of interest.
We just have a few minutes left, and I do want to ask you further quickly, if you can, about the case then that's pending and everything you just said, the case then that is pending against Brahim Ghali in Spain. He is supposed to appear in a Spanish court in June to respond to serious war crimes charges against him. Now, the Spanish government has this policy of non-interference in its judiciary. So do you believe Ghali will actually be tried and sentenced, or do you fear this is kind of a symbolic gesture to appease Morocco right now with no real intent of prosecution? Because the Spanish court has already rejected several petitions of the plaintiffs.
Yeah, so I think that Brahim Ghali will definitely be heard from his hospital room. But I think that even if he leaves the territory, I think that Morocco will not let down, and also those Spanish Sahrawis will not let down this case, and Morocco will continue to defend its interests. We're talking here about a war criminal. We're talking here about also and Spain needs to. That's the thing. Spain needs to repair this blunder, because it was blunder that actually put I would say dispersed those cards and dispersed this good relationship with Morocco and Spain. But definitely Morocco will not let down this the Ghali issue. Right. Brahim Ghali issue.
Okay. And Luis, quickly, Morocco obviously wants Spain to give Morocco recognition over its authority over Western Sahara. Let me ask you, I have to bring this in because I want to know if you think the U.S. started any momentum really to give Morocco the recognition it wants over Western Sahara. Do you think Spain might follow suit, and could the EU follow Washington as well, or is Washington an outlier here?
To be honest, I don't think that the Western Sahara cause is going to go farther than it is right now. I mean, we all know that it's 60 years of a cause that is stuck in the United Nations. The missions are renewing every year, but without results. There's a problem with the census in the case of supposed election. I don't think that the cause. Trump could say whatever he wanted, but I don't think that the cause of the Western Sahara is really working on. And I'm not saying that I like that or not, but I'm being realistic and pragmatic. With France taking the opposition and the US probably don't. I mean, I don't think that the cause of the Western Sahara is going to advance more now than it did in the last 20 years, which was nothing.
And I know that's a disappointment for Morocco, but Virginie, I want to get quick final words from you. I mean, I know you don't want to comment on the geopolitics per se, but knowing just how complex this issue really is, what's your greatest fear for addressing and solving the migrant issue in Morocco?
Well, I'm just hearing both of them, and I was thinking, what is the price of that migrants and asylum seekers are paying? Sorry, there is no transparency on the migration agreements, and as I said before, we are reporting human rights violations on this control. I think the European Union and Spain cannot pay that high price to stop migration because who is paying that high price is those that are fleeing from human rights violations, are fleeing from persecution. Okay. First of all, it has to be legal channels to come to Europe, and also we are asking for transparency and accountability on these agreements.
Okay, Virginia, I will have to give you the last word. Unfortunately, we are completely out of time for this entire edition of The Newsmakers. I'd like to thank all three of my panelists so much for joining us, our viewers as well. We'll see you next time.